Oracle Radio. Aha.
Hi everyone, this is Miss Ivana at Capsule Convos, aired by Oroco Radio. We're gonna be interviewing Sandrine from Estrelar Studios. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Yes, you did. Sandrine is my name. Thank you.
Okay.
Excited to be here.
We're happy to have you. We're just gonna be talking about Estrelar. Wait, am I pronouncing Estrelar correctly?
Everyone has their own pronunciation of it, but
Okay.
I say Estrelar.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so we're just going to be talking about Estrelar, arts as a tool of community building, and everything it takes to, I guess, like host a space like this. So my first question would be, how did you start? How did you come up with the idea? What have been your best practices? I guess you can like go with the flow of how that sounds, yeah.
Where did I start? So yeah, Estrelar kind of started in 2023. First off, it was just me, getting some CDJs, a mixer, and, I kind of just was renting them out for events for people who wanted to practice by themselves. And then I got really lucky, and a friend of mine owned, Tammy's Wine Bar, which is in Parkdale. And he had a room that was honestly just being used as a storage space and was like, do you just want to use this? So I put the decks in there, because eventually I was starting to be like, I'm just renting these out to like strangers at this point. You know what I mean? I'd rather have them in a space where I can control and see like who's coming, what's actually happening, less moving around for me. But I honestly like didn't know what that would entail. Like I was just winging it. I genuinely could not have foreseen or even known how many DJs were in the city, how many people needed something like this. So I put them in the room and then just made a post on Instagram. I was like, hey, if people want to come practice, like this is a thing we're launching. And it's just been, and now here we are in a whole other space with like 3 rooms now. So yeah, it was just like a beautiful and organic evolution of something that I think the community just needed at the time. I think you asked how I came up with the idea. The idea is not unique to me. So my inspiration was actually Pirate Studios in New York, where when I was learning to DJ and I didn't have access to gear and I was just going to New York for work back and forth, and Pirate was really instrumental for me as the first place that I was able to practice on CDJs by myself. So without any of my friends just like looking over, and they're all experienced and I'm kind of getting the hang of it and just wanting to get my footing. So it was a nice experience. And I remember saying like, why don't we have something like this in Toronto? And I often have that thought when I travel. It's always, why don't we have something like this in Toronto? So, yeah.
Yeah, and I know in our conversation that was off camera, you were talking about how Toronto's often where people take off from, and like a city like this is often like a melting pot where, you know, there's so many creatives that are looking for spaces like this to create. And in that sense, how would you say this has been an opportunity for you to foster community? And like, I guess, how has art been a tool of building that community through Estrelar Studios?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think naturally, when you look at a city like Toronto, I think one of our biggest problems is obviously just like one, a lack of space, but also things are really expensive, especially as it comes to spaces, commercial real estate, even just like people's apartments, right? So I always think of Toronto as a city that is unlike Montreal in the sense that they have bigger apartments, they have cheaper rents. It might be skyrocketing now, but I think that has actually created this like house party culture where people had places to gather. And then as our condo culture kind of took over everything else, I think we just started seeing spaces get smaller and smaller and smaller, people having less access to places to even throw events, to gather in community. And so for me, like we started in a coffee shop, like the basement of a coffee shop, right? And coffee shops to me are like one of my favorite third spaces. I think it's a natural area where a community can convene, and it's like quote unquote affordable, right? Because I think the technical to truly foster a third space, I think there's meant to not actually be a financial exchange necessarily. And so I do see Estrelar as that, but I am mindful of the fact that like it still costs something to come here. But one of our ethoses has always been keep it really affordable and for the community. Like this is honestly kind of just like a passion project that took off and now is a full functioning business, which is amazing. But at the core of it, it's just a place for people to be able to come by themselves or with friends and use it however. Like, I've seen people use this space in a way that has nothing to do with DJing. It's just to come here and like read books with other friends, have co-working sessions together, or someone did like a poetry thing. Like, it's just really beautiful. And from an art standpoint, I think I really try to decorate the rooms and infuse magazines, things like everything in this room has been curated by Off-Brand Library, my friend Taylor, who runs a really cool vintage book brand where people can just buy things that you honestly very, very hard to find, rare books. And so the fact that while your friend is DJing, you can just flip through like the source, you know what I mean? We have like God Bless Toronto, which is Kid Studio. They just released a book about exactly what you're talking about, this place being this melting pot, but not necessarily a place where people always stay. So there's little pieces of art around the space, mostly in the form of like physical print media. But I think at its core, it's just kind of a tool for creativity, and you just do whatever you want with it in the way that it makes sense for you.
Yeah. And I love that. And I think, like, when you started talking about the fact that, like, in as much as third spaces need to be accessible, there's always that incentive. Like, we live in a capitalist society. You can't really avoid the cost of running things like this. And how would you say artists, or how are you as like someone that's like running an art space, reconciling like juggling the need to be financially sustainable with being accessible and like still having a space that people can afford?
You know what's so funny about that? I think when I started this, I always said I don't want to run this like a traditional business, which is probably bad business, to be honest, but somehow we've always been fine. It's almost like if you actually just focus on helping people, you can find a way to actually create like sustainable pipelines from a financial standpoint while actually giving back to the community. Like, genuinely, I feel like it's I was just talking to my friend about this the other day when COVID happened and all the businesses were like, they started like charging more for everything. They started like just being like, I saw some things that I was like, this is really sus behavior from people who in this time are supposed to be helpful. And then you have brands like Costco, Dollarama, who they doubled down on, we're actually just going to remain affordable. Like, yes, maybe their prices increased a tiny bit, but at their core, they said, this is our mission. We're not straying from that. And their stocks like skyrocketed because you're doing something that is actually of service, filling a need. And so you'll always be fine. So I don't even think it's about reconciling doing good and then trying to like run a business. I think they can go hand in hand. But because of the way that we operate in this society that feels like scarcity is just like everything is so scarce. Like, there's no resources, which I genuinely don't believe is true. I think we're a lot more abundant than we know, but it's this mindset that is so ingrained in everything that like, if I took what I learned like in business school and then tried to apply that here, I would be charging way more than I am, and I wouldn't be building the community in the way that I am. And so it's a trade-off that I think I'm glad I went about it the way that I felt was organic and actually beneficial, as opposed to honestly, like, yeah, some people were like, you're not charging enough. And I immediately was like, you don't get it. You don't get what this is for. This is not for that, you know? So yeah, I think there's room for both.
Those are really wise words. It's something that I always think about myself because, like, I'm newer into, I guess, treating the arts practice as something that I could actually do consistently and make, like, right now it's a hobby, but, like, of course, one day I would love for this to be something that grows into more than just a hobby. And that's something that I always think about. Like, there's this trope of the art scene having no money in it and not being something that you can pursue unless you have privilege. And I feel like when we have spaces like this that are led by Black people, for us, by us, and it's like not even saying that there's an exclusivity to Black people, but more so just saying that, like, we have so much history of just not being able to access our passions because of financial barriers and barriers of just not belonging. And having spaces like this really does matter and really does like set the tone for, I guess, more people to do more fun things. So yeah, that's really, really cool. And then I guess, like, what are your thoughts on all of the cool things that have been happening in Toronto's art scene? Are there any, like, names that come to mind? Are there any things that, like, like, even if you had your next, like, idea for, like, something creative to do, like, what would that be?
Ooh. That's a interesting question. I think, honestly, like, the city is just so full of talent. There's so many talented people here. It's like, it's hard for me to even start dropping names because it's like everyone that I'm in community with has so much to offer that sometimes you're just like shocked by it, to be honest. And so from music to like friends who are painters, producers, people who are programmers who like just like work in the art space as well. I just think we have so much to offer, and it is in spite of the lack of resources. And I think that's actually what makes us really unique. And also I think the diversity in this city is probably what leads to that unique like perspective in a way, because Toronto is probably, I genuinely think, maybe like one of the, if not the most, one of the most multicultural places in the world that I've ever traveled to or even like had the privilege of like being in, right? And so yeah, I think the city's a melting pot. Like I said, this book is like a testament to that. I remember they dropped it and I was just like leafing through being like, wow, like look at all the people who have done so many incredible things here. And unfortunately, a lot of them have had to like leave the city to go pursue opportunities elsewhere. But I think the younger generation, from even like DJs who, like I see people who started, like I literally saw them start here like a year ago, 2 years ago, and they're insane, right? I think also the sound that we curate in Toronto is so different. It's very genre bending in a way that genuinely, like when I go out to clubs or different places in the world, I'm not hearing that. I'm hearing one sound. Here it's like a mishmash of so many different references, perspectives, cultures, and I think that's what makes us really special. And I guess don't even know if I'm answering your question, but I think you said what would be the next thing or thing I would start. I think it's not something I would start. It would be almost building out the final form of this. And for me, it's like right now we are just like, I got really lucky finding this space that we're in. I think used to be like an old house that just was like zoned commercial, but no one had been here in like 20 years. Like it's pretty crazy. So I think that is the final form of Estrelar, not here, but eventually is like getting something that is a house. And so the kitchen is like a communal place where people can drink coffee, they can have snacks, they can meet up. Because I think the one thing that I really wish I could do is have a place for people to have dialogue, because right now they're seeing each other in the hallways, they're building community, be like, oh, like you're the next session, or like this is the sound that I play, or this is what I do, but there's nowhere really for them to like just sit and chill outside of the session, if that makes sense. And so I think that would be the final form, is having like a coffee shop inside of, or just a place that actually caters to you just being able to even just pull up and you don't have a session, but like you can just chill, right? So a full-fledged, like almost like not a community center, but just like a community space outside of just DJing being the main reason or ethos for us like existing. Yeah.
I really love the idea of you having like a house with like, I guess like just for people to come and do creative things and then also just coexist, because like that's so just like intrinsic to how people have often created art anyways. Like it's often in their homes, it's often in like familiar spaces. So I think that's like a nice scenery that matches what it is that you're doing. And then I guess my last question, I don't know if this is my last question, but I'm curious to know, well, how do you think your heritage impacts or influences your approach to everything that you do when it comes to running a space like this and just like having, I always say arts as a tool of community building because like that's a huge ethos for me and like everything that I'm doing, and I feel like that's what art should always be. So how do you feel like your heritage influences that?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think well, to be honest, it's like if from a so I'm from Burkina Faso, and up until recently it wasn't really like an African country that many people even knew where that was. And so I also have lived primarily in Canada, right? So I do visit my family often, but I would say that the through line from my heritage or my upbringing and my culture and how I'm infusing that here is actually mainly through a lot of the curation. Like I do make sure that the books are Black, or it's like featuring Black artists. So I have like a thick book in room 1 that's African artists because they never get the shine. And there's one of my favorite books that I've actually left here is love Flash. One of my favorite books that I've actually left here, which is Peuple de la Nuit, and it's by an African photographer who's from my like my hometown back home. He's from Tinule, and so it's really cool knowing that. Sorry, he's from my region, but not necessarily from my like hometown. But it's really cool knowing that someone like that who has published this incredible book that I then like had the pleasure of like meeting him, bought the book off him. We really chatted, and he, similar to a Malik Sidibe, really created like a really cool aesthetic back then for a lot of artists by shooting album covers and just like shooting club nights in a way that was so impactful to me when I met him and like bought that book. And they were just doing this in the middle of fields like anywhere. And I think part of the culture is do what you can with what you have. And so that's what this space is. So part of it is, like I said, curation, making sure that there's Black representation in here, making sure that we're providing accessibility to minorities primarily. But the other half is, like I said, putting little parts of my culture just like sprinkled around and just making sure that it feels Black in some way.
I love that you said do what you can with what you have, because that's definitely a very, not even just, is Burkina Faso in West Africa? Yeah, I think that's a very West African sentiment, to be honest. Like, I feel like that's like something that we all, like, across countries, even in Ghana, like, I think that's just, we're very resourceful by nature, because it's hard to live in those countries. It's hard to, like, living in those countries, like, you have to have grit. So I feel like our parents have really instilled into us like being resourceful and resilient and having like a good work ethic. So yeah, that's really cool. I don't have any other questions other than, I guess I just want to like commend you for everything that you've accomplished and everything that you're doing. And I think you have like such great ideas, and I'm really excited to see the house concept really come to life, because I feel like that would be amazing. And yeah, do you have anything that you want to leave off with? Closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts. Yeah, closing thoughts maybe is, how this space even exists, is just like, don't be afraid to take a risk. Because again, had no idea what this could have turned into. And I think had I listened to the advice of a lot of people on how to structure this, how to launch this, how to run this, again, from a profit-driven standpoint, I don't think we would have the beautiful community that we have today. And so, yeah, I urge people to just like take a risk and listen to your gut. Don't listen to people who are kind of giving you advice on traditional structures. I think when you're building community spaces, specifically within the arts, you have to do things untraditionally, truly, in order to see. I think you can blend both, but I think it's really about doing things in a new way. And it kind of always works out, you know?
Yeah.
I think it always works out.
Yeah. And then can you tell the people watching where you're located, how they can come by, all that good stuff?
Yes. So we are located at 8 Brock Avenue. This is in Parkdale. And you just go on our website, estrelarsound.com. You can book 1 hour, 3 hour, 6 hour sessions, and you just get codes on the day of. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Find us on IG also at Estrelar Sound.
Perfect. Well, that's it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And that was Capsule Convos with Estrelar.